Right, are the slides up now?
Yep, the slides are up.
Okay. Should I start?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start anytime you're live on the broadcast.
One second. Hi, my name is Joel Offrecht in the Team Practices Group of the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'm presenting a tech talk this morning entitled A Hands-on Estimation Exercise. So if you are watching, now is the time to get ready to write down answers for 10 questions. You can use paper, use your computer as you see fit, but we will be doing a quiz to start off the meeting, so you want to be ready to write down 10 answers. And I'm going to explain what the quiz is very briefly. We will do the quiz for about 10 minutes, 1 minute per question, and then I will give the answers, and then we will talk about what it means. I have a few things to say about it, and then open up for general discussion. There's a lot of different things you can learn from this depending on which direction you want to go. It's a good place to start conversations. I will leave that up to the people attending what we want to debrief on. So let me pause and see if there's any technical issues or questions.
We are all set. You have 7 people watching remotely right now. Actually, it just turned to 8.
Great. All right, so let's start. This is the quiz. This is what you're going to need to write down to take your answers. So 10 questions, low and high. And if you are watching the slides, which are in IRC, don't skip ahead since there's quiz questions. And of course, don't Google the answers or look on Wikipedia for the answers for the quiz. I'm going to ask 10 questions. They're questions about facts, generally verifiable facts in the world. They're numerical questions. How much, how many, how big, and for each one I'll give units. There's no trick questions. Nothing is like secretly the answer is 0 because whatever. They're all very straightforward, face value questions. Your assignment is to pick for each question a high answer and a low answer so that you are accurate, meaning that the correct answer is between the high and the low 90% of the time. So you want to set a range so that you're 90% confident that you have the correct answer. So some of these questions you may not be very familiar with anything relating to the question. Set your high and your low appropriately so that you're 90% confident. Let me pause another second for any questions about this before we begin with the quiz. And I'll let the live stream catch up. You can ask in IRC if you have any questions. Make sure your pencils are ready or your notebook. You can copy the slide out if you look at the presentation. All right, let's start. I will read the question and I will wait a total of 1 minute for each question from when I start reading. So actually I will get my timer running and we'll do 1 minute per question. Okay, the first question, what was the C-section rate in Pakistan in 2008 as a percentage? This is the rate of all births which were cesarean section births in the country of Pakistan in the year 2008 as a percentage. So not how many C-sections were there, but what percentage of all births were C-section births. Again, you want to pick a high number and a low number so that the correct answer is 90% of the time in that range. And obviously, in case it's not obvious, all of these, do your best guess. Do not look up any of the information. The point of the quiz is to estimate without more information. What was the C-section rate of births in Pakistan in 2008 as a percentage? Question 1. Question 2. How many people were born in Japan in 2014? So question 2, how many people were born in Japan in the year 2014? Question 3, how many people died in car crashes in Israel and the West Bank in the year 2014? Question 3, how many people, this is the total number of people, died in car crashes in Israel and the West Bank in 2014? Question 3, one last time. How many people died in car crashes in Israel and the West Bank in 2014? Moving to question 4. How many babies named Sandra were born in the United States in the entire decade of the 1940s? And not a trick question. I believe this includes boys, but at this level of precision, it did not matter. How many babies named Sandra were born in the United States in the 1940s, the entire decade? Question 4, last time. How many babies named Sandra were born in the United States in the 1940s? Question 5. What is the boiling point of oxygen in degrees centigrade? And this is at standard pressure, I would assume. So what is the boiling point of oxygen when it transitions from liquid to gas in degrees centigrade? Remember, for all of these, you should not be guessing a number. You should be guessing two numbers, the high and the low, the 90% confidence. Question 5 for the last time. What is the boiling point of oxygen in degrees centigrade? Question 6. How many vehicles traveled on the Washington State ferries in 2012? This is Washington State of United States in the ferry system. How many vehicles traveled? There's car ferries, and you can drive your car onto a ferry. How many vehicles traveled on these ferries in the year 2012? Question 6 for the last time. How many vehicles traveled on the Washington State ferry system in the year 2012? Question 7. What is the great circle distance between Shanghai and Nairobi in kilometers? That's the shortest distance over the globe as an airplane would fly between Shanghai and Nairobi in kilometers. Question 7, for the last time, what is the great circle distance as an airplane would fly between Shanghai and Nairobi in kilometers? Remember, a high number and a low number. Question 8, what is the average age gap between male and female actors in Hollywood romances, in movies, as the unit is years? So what is the average age gap between male and female actors in Hollywood romance movies in years? And this is a signed number, positive or negative. Question 8, for the last time, what is the average age gap between male and female actors in Hollywood romances? And indicate which direction it is, if male actors on average are older or if male actors on average are younger than female. Question 9, how many lines did Shakespeare write? Not counting his private correspondence, I believe, but how many lines of published material or etc.? How many lines of, what's the word? Verses, plays of material, not correspondence, not private material. So how many lines did Shakespeare write? Question 9 for the last time. How many lines, and there's no trick question, there's not a controversy that Shakespeare didn't really write anything. We're assuming straightforward. How many lines did Shakespeare write? And question 10, final question. How high is the tallest building in Africa in meters? Question 10 for the last time. How high in meters is the tallest building in Africa? All right, while I get the answer key out, please guess in the IRC cloud, if you would like to, how many of these you got right, where getting it right is between the highest and lowest number. So go ahead and make your guess in IRC. What do you think you got right? How many of these is the actual number within your high and your low? I'll give people about 10 seconds to do that, and then we will go through the answers, and you can also look at the presentation, but I will read all the answers one at a time so you can score yourself. So now we're guessing how many we guessed. So we will see what our meta accuracy is. Give people another couple seconds because I still see answers trickling into IRC, and then we'll do the answer key. All right, I will go ahead and read all of them one at a time so you can score as I go. The C-section rate in Pakistan in 2008 was 7.3%. 7.3%. Question number 2, how many people were born in Japan? 1 million. Very close to 1 million. It was like within a few thousand. Question number 3, how many people died in car crashes in Israel and the West Bank? 290. Question number 4, how many babies named Sandra were born in the U.S. in the 1940s? 265,518. Question number 5, the boiling point of oxygen is minus 182.9 degrees centigrade. So I guess that's minus 183 degrees centigrade. Question number 6, how many vehicles traveled on the Washington State ferries in 2012? 10 million. And it costs about $14. More if it's a truck. That's not part of the answer. Question number 7, distance between Shanghai and Nairobi, the Great Circle distance is 9,575 kilometers. So a little under 10,000 kilometers, 9,575 kilometers. Question 8, the average age gap between male and female actors in Hollywood romance is 4.5 years, with the men being older. Men average 4.5 years older than women in Hollywood romances. Number 9, how many lines did Shakespeare write? 118,406. 118,406. And the last one, number 10, the tallest building in Africa, the Carlton Center, is 223 meters tall. So before you put your actual scores in IRC, what I'll do is I'll collect them one at a time. So I'm going to count down. Before I collect scores, anyone have any questions or clarifications about the answers? And I will collect scores and we'll see how we did. Remember, you were supposed to pick a high and a low, so you had a 90% chance of getting each one correct. Did anyone get 10 out of 10? If you did in IRC, go ahead and put what it is. Did anyone get 9 out of 10? Anyone get 9 out of 10? 8 out of 10. Anyone get 8 out of 10? 7 out of 10. Just go ahead and holler in IRC. If you got 7 out of 10, say you got 7 out of 10. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Anyone get 5 out of 10? 4 out of 10. Anyone get 4 out of 10? Greg, I think you got, anyone else get 4 out of 10? Counting 4.5 as 5, I got 6. I don't totally follow that. You're rounding one of them? Oh. Yeah, Kevin got the exact same set of questions in a TPG dry run of this and did not get 10 out of 10. So we've got an 8, but that's the second time, so it doesn't count. We have a 6. We don't count near Mrs. Subu, so we have a, oh, I see, rounding up the age difference. Trey, what was the range that you put? What was the range that you guessed? Question 8, yeah, 4.5. So we have a 6, 1, 4. I think if you said 5 to 20, then 4.5 is, I would say, out. I guess that's borderline. So maybe you got 5.5 right. Okay. I guess that's a question about implicit precision and significant digits. So we have a 6, a debatable 6, we have a 4, 5, a 3. Anyone get 3, 2, or 1? Go ahead and put it in. So obviously there's a trick to this, is to the answer. It's pointing out that no one got 9 out of 10, including the person who did this before with the exact same set of questions. I borrowed this format from Steve McConnell, who's the author of Code Complete and Rapid Development. I learned it when I took his estimation class. And there's a lot of different morals you can maybe take from this, so I'll talk for a minute or two about what it means to me and where I go with this, and then open it wide open for discussion. The thing that's most interesting to me, it ties in a little bit with Daniel Kahneman's book that I've been reading, Thinking Fast and Slow. It's theory that you have a a system one in your head that does quick, rapid reactions, has instinct, your gut, and you have a system two, which is more logical, which has doubt, which has self-reflection, and they're in competition. System one does not want to even admit what it does not know. You are not willing, you're basically, it's one of the many forms of cognitive bias, is you are at all times lying to yourself about how much you are lying to yourself. Greg had this question in IRC, why don't I just pick 0 to 100%? And of course you would get, actually you wouldn't get all of them, because I bet, some of them, how many people born in Japan, you pick what, 0 to 5 billion or something? Like even then there's some wiggle room. But so we have this instinct that says, I don't want to give an answer so wide that it's useless, so I'll give it narrow. But even though I repeat it a bunch of times, you want a 90% accuracy, which means you should get 9 out of 10 correct if that's holding up or close to it. It's really hard to admit to yourself how broad the range of uncertainty is. So when you're estimating, a lesson is the range is always bigger than you think it is, like always. That's just a permanent bias that you'll never overcome, even when you're aware of the bias and trying to overcome it. I'll just give one, and then another super interesting thing is the interplay between precision and accuracy. You could answer 0 to 100%, the answer is useless. So you're always, however, if you answer 5 to 20%, it's very precise, but it's, actually in this case it'd be right. That's lovely, but if you answered, 50 to 100%, that's half the range of possibilities for C-sections. It'd be a broad range, it'd still be wrong. So most of the time, you're better off being uselessly right than precisely wrong. But that's what you have to figure whenever you're estimating. You say, is this one of those cases where I want to have the right answer in my range? My range needs to be so big, because if the answer is something extreme, and it's extreme more often than we think it is, I need to know that that's a possibility. And then when we're estimating in software, obviously, in a company structure, you're always getting pressure from your boss, etc., from your users, customers. I want a narrow range because that's useless. You can't tell me that this software is going to take between 1 and 5 years because I can't do anything with that. But the truth is it will take between 1 and 5 years. So let me show one real-world example, which is the blizzard last month on the East Coast of the United States. They forecast, the final forecast before it really hit was 7 to 12 inches, but they also showed a range of between less than an inch and 23 inches of snow. And the actual amount of snow in New York City was, I think, around 23 inches. So you might think that forecast is useless. Like almost any day you could say there's between less than an inch and 23 inches of snow in New York City. If you make that between 0 and 23, you could issue that forecast every single day. But there's still a difference between saying in theory there could be, in July there's never going to be 24 inches of snow. The chance of there being a freak storm that brings snow to New York City in July is, so small you can live your life without worrying about it. So this forecast, by saying the range is this extreme, we're saying there's a real chance, and for the next day or two, plan your life around any of these things happening. So the question is, when is this range of information actionable versus useless? What's the best you can do? So with those vague thoughts out there, I will throw this open to anyone who wants to discuss any aspects. Trade-offs between estimation, between precision and accuracy, the nuts and bolts of how you came up with your numbers. If anyone wants to talk, go back and look at any of these and explain how they came up with an estimate, anything. So anyone who wants to join in the Hangout with a question, or we can ask an IRC, and I will let people catch up with questions.
So the interesting thing to me was how I came up with numbers about subjects that I know literally nothing about. So like the question about the Washington State ferries, I didn't even know what's that. So I have no idea how big that is. What are we talking about here? No idea.
What was your range?
Which number?
It was 10 million.
No, but the
number 6.
6. Okay, so I came up with 25K to 100K. Because I thought, I don't know, maybe people drive cars more than they carry them on the ferry. But but still, I put like 100K, what you said earlier about taking into account extremes.
Mm-hmm.
To me, 100K seemed like an extreme.
Yeah, but that's the busiest ferry system in the world.
Yeah, but I don't know that. So I use my, let's say, local bias, where in Europe 100K for such a system is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But here, obviously,
Right.
it's not.
So, I mean, there's one thing you can always say, like Greg, like Subu said with oxygen, you can say what is the least possible and the greatest possible. You'd say, like, you know, if I needed to put a number and I was completely uncertain, I'd be like, well, there's like 7-8 billion people on the planet, so I'm sure there can't be 8 billion rides. So maybe if I really wanted to be sure I had the range, it would be 0 to 8 billion, and then I'd try and narrow down from that. With oxygen, that was a little easier. Did anyone else want to explain their logic behind one of the questions? Yeah, and so comparing, saying what is some other number that would give me a bound on this? You know, you could say this is a software project. If this is a 20-year software project, we can't do it. So it can't be that big. Like that number means quit and don't try. Do something else instead. But definitely when you have, and in software, I think you're probably more often in the case of Washington State Ferries. I have no idea what this is. I've never been on one. I don't know what it is. Never done it before, because if it's software and you've done it before, there's nothing to do. You just use the old software. So as opposed to some of the other ones, easier to estimate.
Yeah, but it's also true that like if you're an engineer and you talk about software, even if it doesn't exist and even if you don't have the specifications, at least you can have some, let's say, professional bias towards, let's say, what a day's work brings, and you can estimate what a month's work bring. So it's easier to say, okay, this is doable in a period, or no, this is completely crazy.
But something like 3/4 of all software projects are late. So clearly, as a class, engineers are consistently biased in the wrong direction, and then most large public work projects, like bridges, tend to be late, and that's because I think not because people can't estimate, but because there's systematic bias. If I give a low estimate, I'll get funded, I'll get a job for the next 10 years, and then I won't be here when they have to deal with the fact that, that's just how it works, how funding works. So there's a difference between just in the abstract estimating and then estimating when you have a bias to come up with a particular answer. But again, the other thing to get from here is even when you're bias-free, there's no consequence whatsoever for being wrong. You could have put 0 to 100% and you would have gotten 10 out of 10, or something like that. We still are driven to not admit to ourselves how uncertain we are and pick much smaller ranges. Our high score was a 6 out of 10. So Steve McConnell, when I went to his class, said he's done this a bunch of times, and no one has ever gotten 9 out of 10, ever, in all the times he's done this exercise, with obviously different data and different questions. Subu bumped up, I see. So what was your final estimate, Subu, for the distance between the two cities? Because we also have round number bias. Yeah.
He said 10K, and I put 10K too.
On the lower end.
Yeah.
Of course, it was slightly under 10K, so the urge to, well, it's got to be this nice big, it's far, so it should be 10,000, and not like, well, maybe they're a little closer, and I think I'll go 5,000, I'll go, maybe it's only the width of the United States somehow, so that's 5,000, and it depends on what you know, what other numbers you have, so the recency bias, like, I happen to know how big the United States is across 5,000 kilometers, so I would use that number, and that would bias my estimates toward that number up or down. As I believe, well, it's this or two of these. Yeah. Let me open up for any other questions. And you are welcome, if you find this helpful, you are welcome to run this in your own team. Spring it on them in one of your stand-ups. I think you can run it a little faster than half an hour. We tried to run this as a 5-minute lightning talk in TPG. It was a little too much to do in a lightning talk, or 5 minutes, but I think 15 minutes. You can probably go a little faster on the questions. And the presentation will be available, anyone who wants to recycle it for that purpose. And of course, you can go with your own questions as well. Obviously, there's a huge issue of bias in the questions, geographic bias, what you happen to know. So I tried to get a range of different facts out there. All right, if there are no other questions, I'll wait another 20 seconds or so. If there's no other discussion questions, if no one else wants to raise something, then we are done. Let's see if that's the case. Suba, did you want to say more about that? Your range of estimating consistently by, I guess, a half order of magnitude base 10? Did anyone else see a consistent range that they were estimating, like factor of 2, top to bottom, or anything like that? Another big round number bias? All right. Everyone, thank you for coming, and that ends our tech talk on estimation, precision versus accuracy.